Today on Free Field Training, we're taking a look at the Fenix GL19r. Fenix sent this light to me to talk to all of you about it and give you a review from the lens of police and security duty use, although I think a lot of the things I'm going to talk about are going to be pretty applicable to people using them just for any purpose, whether that's home defense, concealed carry, or whatever. We are looking at through that lens. There are some very definite positives and some very definite negatives to this light. I think anybody who's thinking about plunking down their $100 to $125 to get it should know about before they put that money down. Link down below. If you use that link, I make a little bit of money. However, all the other lights that I'm going to talk about in this video, I'm going to put links to those down below as well, and I make a little money if you buy one of those. So feel free to peruse those to see the things that I suggest and to get a better idea of what I'm talking about here in the video about the GL19r. Now, Fenix says this is a 1200 lumen weapon light, and when they say that, they mean maybe only for about the first 15 to 30 seconds of it. Just as is in their literature on this light, my testing here revealed a similar slow slope that goes from 1200 lumens down to 700 lumens over the course of about 10 to 15 minutes, and then evens out and runs at that even rate of about 500 to 600 lumens for the remainder 40 to 45 minutes of its 1 hour of operation before shutting down. Now, on high mode, which you can select on this by double tapping both of the back switches on the light in a particular order, it's 350 lumens, and it runs pretty solid at 350 lumens for about 2 hours before it starts crapping out on you. So at its normal high mode, it does get pretty good runtime. Now, of course, everybody's going to wonder what this looks like at 1200 lumens. Here's our normal 3 trees. These 3 trees, the first one is at 15 yards, second one is about 20 to 27 yards, depending on where I'm standing in the driveway, and the last one is about 35 yards, give or take a couple, depending on how much the tree has grown and whether it's been trimmed back recently. Now, pushing across the street, we're looking at 80, 90 yards, and as you can see, you can get a little light, but it's not getting past those photonic barriers from the house across the street. People around here like to use really, really bright porch lights, which mess up using something like this, but that's a real world thing and something that we want to see. This thing doesn't have a lot of throw. It does have a pretty good amount of flood. So in a more urban environment, or if you're not worried about how far this light's going to throw, it might be a really good option for you. If you're looking for a rechargeable light to put on your rifle, though, so that you can use it just off the back porch, this might not be a great thing because it doesn't throw very well. It is rechargeable. It recharges through a USB-C on the far side, the non-branded side, I like to call it, on this light. It's got a little rubber cover. And if you follow Free Field Training at all, you know that I'm always skeptical of any light that's got a little rubber cover over a USB charging port, because I think at some point you're going to end up getting water or dust or something like that in there. These tend to be the first thing to wear out on anything, regardless of what its IPX rating is, and that always gives me a little bit of a hinky feeling when I see something like that, knowing, is it going to be fine with water? Is it not going to be fine with water? What's going to happen if water intrudes in there? Now, taking the battery out of this, you just unscrew the cap, and you can see that the battery in here is an 18350, I want to say, yeah, 18350 battery. It is not rechargeable just in the battery, so this isn't one of those lights that you can just kind of stuff something in there and then fill it with hot glue and say, well, we're just not going to worry about that charging port anymore, unless you find another battery that you can use in it. Putting the battery back in is just as easy. It's just screw back close and you're right back to business with the light working. Even running this for the full hour at its turbo mode, it really didn't have any overheat protection issues where I think it's going to melt the lens. Every time I see one of these reflector lenses with the multiple different lens types inside of it, people are kind of familiar with these. They tend to make a very bright spot that floods out pretty far and then not a lot around the outside of it. When you get something like this, I always worry about the lens melting. Some other brands have had issues with that, but I don't see those issues here. Even when I ran it for a full hour, I could pick it up and hold it in my hand, and it wasn't even really all that warm. Maybe as warm as like a chemical hand warmer, but it wasn't bad at all. The throw lever attachment point is on the side, and it folds flat, which means that you can mount this onto a normal duty size pistol. And one thing I found out is that mounted on, let's say this is kind of Glock 17 size fake pistol. It's a training gun here. Mounting it on something that's Glock 17 sized, let me try it in a bunch of different holsters. And one interesting holster that I found that works for it is the Safariland SLS ALS holsters for the Veridian Fact Duty. So the SLS works on it, the ALS works on it, the SLS works on it when the ALS is deactivated. This duty holster works, it would appear, with a Glock 17 and the Fenix GL19r. I'll put a link to what I'm talking about down in the description to that as well. So as a police duty light, one of the biggest problems that we have with police duty lights when they come brand new on the market, not being able to find duty holsters to fit it, is taken care of. There are legit holsters on the market that we can use with this light and pistol combination. It also works with TLR2 holsters and TLR1 holsters, according to the company, and some of the ones that I've tested here in the studio. Everybody knows I've got several TLR1s and TLR2s. It does not fit into holsters for the Surefire X300UB. The outline of it is a little different, so that's something to know if that happens to be the holster that you have to use. It's not going to fit inside of there, so don't bother trying. The GL19R's operation is pretty intuitive. If you're used to any compact weapon lights that are out there today, you've got a little paddle on both sides. You push once quickly, just kind of tap and you get constant on, tap again to get constant off, or you can push and hold and you get momentary, so when you let go of the switch, the light shuts off. One interesting aspect of this operation is that if you draw the pistol one-handed, you can still activate the light with just your trigger finger. I'd be really careful doing that, but in a circumstance where you don't have the other hand to operate the light, you're probably in a pretty dire emergency anyway. But if you're a K9 officer or something like that, where you're going to be able to have to operate the light one-handed in an emergency, that's something to keep in mind. Whether you use this light or you get into something like a TLR7, or another compact weapon light, that's something to keep in mind. In stark contrast to the Surefire X300U, which is my preference for a duty light, doing this one-handed with the Surefire X300U is nigh on impossible because of how stiff the switches are and the operation of it. You'd probably end up hurting yourself for just not being able to activate it with one hand like that. Now it comes with separate screw mounts that will allow you to mount this to either a Glock rail or to a 1913 rail. There's just a little plate on there with a single screw. You unscrew it, slip the plate out, put the screw back on there, and you'll be able to mount it onto a rifle if you want to. This wouldn't be my first choice for that application. And that gets down to the stark honesty of this, and this wouldn't be my first choice for any law enforcement or security application, mostly because of the charge port and because Fenix is brand new onto the market with this. If you could use this with a non-rechargeable battery, or if the battery itself was rechargeable and this charge port was gone or glued over the top of in a way that wouldn't destroy the light, I'd say it had a whole lot more application, especially in the security industry or people that are on a really tight budget in law enforcement, and lots of people are. I think in the future we're going to talk about doing a low-budget duty pistol setup and how to get something that'll get you out there on the road working, that will work for you for the time being without spending a whole boatload of money, and this might be something that could fit into that equation if that applies to you. People have asked a lot about other brands. We tend to get the same brands over and over again on the channel, and so when Fenix asked if they could send me the GL19R, although normally I don't say yes to most modern flashlight reviews because we have so many of them on the channel from so many budget options, I couldn't say no when I saw how similar it looked to several other lights of kind of the same ilk, and where the price point was at. It kind of fits in a nice middle ground of the price point wars, where you're getting something that's got pretty good output. It's not a super high price, it's not a super cheap price. If this is really the best that you can afford, I think you could definitely make it work, and you could probably find a pistol to put it on and a holster that'll match the whole operation fairly easily out on the used police equipment market. A lot of the trade-in market today is flooded with cheap Safariland holsters and Glock 22s. Mating this up with that might be a really good option for some people out there. If you have comments, questions, or concerns, or you know something about this light that I didn't cover on here, please put it down in the comment section down below. If you own one of these lights, I would love to hear a long-term review of it. In the meantime, I'm going to take this and I'm going to pass it off to someone at work that is going to mount it on a pistol, and they are going to use it until the thing breaks. I've got a couple of lights out there that we have done this with, a couple of the O lights that I thought were rather suspicious in some of the reviews that were given on the internet, and later found out that the thing actually worked pretty well when I gave it to people and they were using it long term. And then a couple of the other O lights that I found out weren't really working so well long term. There's a stream light that I gave away that's out there that's still being used. A bunch of Thor fires and through nights that are out there. Some of them have come back, some of them have not. We've talked about those on the channel before. This is going to go into that type of rotation. Not sure I'm going to give it to, but I'm sure it won't be hard to find some canine officer or something somewhere who's willing to give this a shot and see if the upsides of the easy operation and that high output when you first turn it on is worth the downsides of having the USB port on the side with a little rubber cover. Maybe we'll see that that isn't really an issue if it's properly holstered most of the time. Maybe we'll see that it is a huge issue. Either way, I'll bring it back to you when we get our findings. That's it for Free Field Training today. Until next week, you guys be safe and take care of each other. Hey, thanks for watching Free Field Training on YouTube. And while you're here, why don't you check out some of these other goofy videos that I've made? Or you could subscribe or maybe go over to Patreon and see how you get your name put on the videos like these fine folks over here. All the links are, of course, down in the description. We'll see you guys next time.